Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the special edition of the KnowTalks 2023 from the Abu Dhabi International Book Fair. In today's session, our distinguished guest, Emma Burdett, the CEO and founder of Wild, Women in Leadership Deliver, which is the fastest growing network in the Middle East, will provide valuable insights into how she cultivated the passion for gender equity, some global and regional statistics of gender equality, having women in leadership, toxic workplace culture and non-inclusive teams, and how to break barriers and come together to embrace allyship for a sustainable future. Emma, you're a renowned advocate for gender equality and a champion of women's rights. So I'll leave it to you to provide us with some insights into gender equality, the future trends, and where we stand today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Hi, everybody. I'm Emma Burdett, the founder and CEO of Wild. As Anthony said, we are the fastest growing women's network, trailblazing gender equity across the Middle East. So I'd like to go through a few stats surrounding gender equality, how we can work together in allyship and all play our part, and importantly, about the Wild journey and the Wild mission. So, gender equality for a sustainable future. So the UN, which I'm delighted to work with, and I'm going to be working a lot with in Riyadh, which is really exciting as well. So I'm grateful to be here, has set 17 sustainability goals, and SDG 5 is gender equity. So a lot of people ask me, why Wild? So I've been in the region for 9 years, and I've always worked in the corporate sector. And I've always had pretty senior leadership roles before I went on to do Wild. But I want to take you on a journey because my intention is to inspire you and let you know that anything is possible. So in 2006, a long, long time ago, and I am showing my age, I worked in a software company in central London, and I managed to get a meeting with a really, really big corporate company. I was really excited, but at the time, no one spoke of gender equality. Women's leadership was not on the radar. And I actually worked in a team of 22, and I was the only female. So I set off with my BlackBerry. That just shows you, do you remember BlackBerries? I think they've discontinued now. And I went to go into the meeting and I proceeded with my sales pitch of how the software was going to save the company time and money. So in walked a flustered gentleman who refused to shake my hand. And I looked at him really, really confused. And he said to me, "Where's the sales guy?" So I said, "It's just me." So he looked really, really annoyed. And as I proceeded with my sales patter, actually stood up and barked at me to get out of the office, "You silly girl, and what do women know about real estate?" I will never forget the day, Anthony. I will never forget the day when I stood in London in the rain, because it's always raining there, and felt so ashamed, so scared, so embarrassed, a young female carving out her career, and it really did shatter my confidence. And it was that day that I made a pledge. I didn't want any other young female to go through what I had endured. And I will never, ever forget the day that I became a feminist. Now, there's a lot of cliche around the word feminism. Feminism actually means fair and equal rights for both.
But just one point, I think your manager should have been ashamed back then. It's not you, actually. But sometimes it takes time, actually, for them to understand what they've done. I hope today he's ashamed and he did not do it to another lady.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think there's more and more awareness surrounding gender equality. I mean, people are talking about gender equality. I'm not sure how much action is really being taken. When we look at the stats in a moment, we'll see that they're going backwards, which is a real call to action. And my intention today is really to give you this awareness, this knowledge, and to let you know that we can all make a difference, no matter how small. So let's just look at what some of these facts actually are. So what we know globally, there are only 16% of women in leadership positions. Now, that is a relatively small number. And there's only 8% of women who are CEOs. Now, that's actually a real low number if we look at the top FTSE 500 companies. And we know that when we have women in leadership, it actually leads to a myriad of benefits for not only the business, but also our society and our economy. There's actually more male white CEOs called John than there are female CEOs. So I think that's quite a shocking, alarming fact, actually, that, you know, there's more white men called John. It really does surprise me because I see so many companies taking the initiative with sustainability, but actually, I think they forget that SDG 5 is gender equity, because I still keep seeing panels with all white men or groups and meetings with all white men. So not only are they not including women, they're not including any diversity at all. So unpacking the stats a little bit more, are we doing enough? And the answer is simply no, we are not. Our friends at the UN obviously delve very deep into this topic. It will take 286 years for men and women to achieve, to have fair and equal rights and opportunities. And actually, that makes me feel really, really sad. We won't see gender equity in our lifetime. But, however, we can.
A very, very fast pace. I hope we're up to it. I think we have yeah, you know, because we're at a fair, you know, the internet connection could be disrupted at any point in time. Thank you for just
no worries, we can pick it back up.
with us. Yeah.
So the World Economic Forum has cited it will take 115 years in the Middle East. So actually, in the Middle East, we're at a 50% advantage. But I still don't feel that GCC companies are doing enough when it comes to gender equality. And I think the issue lies in the fact that people don't actually know what to do or how to go about bringing in that change. And really, it's about attracting and retaining female talent. It's about providing role models, providing mentee systems for younger females, particularly Gen Zs that are coming up through the ranks who are curious, rebellious, really ethical, let's say. So there are lots of things that we need to do to work towards creating gender equity for a sustainable world. And actually, I mean, this is quite an old statistic that came out now, because it says that we could achieve $12 trillion if we managed to reach gender equity, $12 trillion to the global GDP. I mean, that's absolutely such an astounding amount by 2025. So I think we've got 18 months left. So we're definitely not going to achieve anywhere near that. But, you know, it's about investing in our female talent, okay? So with gender inequity, what we see is a lot of women dropping off before they reach leadership level. Lots of reasons why. One, as I mentioned, a lack of female role models. Secondly, lots of work environments don't offer flexible working hours, perhaps for mums, and we're not creating inclusive environments so women can bring their whole selves to the workplace. More on that later. So it's about creating awareness, shaping attitudes, becoming role models, and driving that change. And ultimately, achieving equity not only leads to greater profits, which, you know, we're all interested in running business, is the profitability, but also increased innovation. Those companies with equity at board level are 26% more profitable. If I was a man running a business and I knew that by bringing in more women in leadership, creating diverse teams, cross-functional teams, was going to make me more profitable, my question is, what are we waiting for? So it's easy to think that gender equity can be a woman's issue. And actually, gender equity is a human rights issue. And you'll know all about this because you work for the UN, but there is an amazing campaign called the He for She. And it's about educating men about the benefits of equity and allowing them to be role models and engineers of change. And also, I absolutely love the pink that is used for the He for She, which is a Pantone bright rose, which I've actually used for a lot of my own branding, which means a fair representation of men and women. Did you know that?
No.
You do now. So fast forward some years on and moved to Dubai nearly 10 years ago, worked for several corporates. And throughout the course of my career, I'm sad to say that I have been bullied, harassed, fired, belittled, left out of the boys' club, spoken over in meetings. And again, you know, that's all contributed to me having an ardent desire to be able to wanting to make a difference. So on to Wild and a little bit about that journey. I created Wild after creating a smaller women's network on behalf of a company. The network started as 4 women and a sheet of paper. I actually ended up having a mental breakdown and a rock bottom moment. I wrote Wild from scratch in 2018. I poured my knowledge, heart, and wisdom into the project, launched it, and had over 150 women at our very first event. Had never done a keynote talk, was absolutely terrified. So this is a picture from our last Wild Riyadh event. We actually took over a gaming center, and the message was, gaming is not just for men. And we saw so many women in Riyadh from all different race, ethnicity, culture, religion. The vibe in the room was absolutely electric. We're so excited about scaling into Saudi Arabia. So watch this space. So Wild is really about voice, authenticity, diversity, expression, and really coming together, collaborating, connecting, and importantly, conquering our fears. So throughout the Wild journey, I would say that it's taken a lot of courage. Now, to be courageous, we need to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity and joy. We also, seeing as we're at the Abu Dhabi Book Fair, just mentioning one of my favorite books by Bren Brown. She talks a lot about the power of vulnerability. So when we're vulnerable, that's when we take risks. That's when we delve into the unknown. That's how innovation starts, because without risk, there is no innovation or no creativity. And this is actually one of my favorite quotes. There's nothing more uncertain than the creative process, and no innovation without failure. Just talking a little bit about diversity as a whole, because, you know, gender equity is one component of DEI, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is actually all of us together, an opportunity to celebrate one another's uniqueness. It spans way beyond tolerance. It's about building inclusivity. And so I think particularly in this region, you know, there's over 100 different nationalities, ethnicities. It's very easy to build a diverse team. What about the I from DEI? What about the inclusion? Many people are afraid to bring their whole selves to the workplace. So they leave their deepest passions and their truest talents at the door. And the company isn't leveraging from all of that beautiful, rich diversity that a company might have. Diversity creates higher productivity, richness, diverse quality of thinking, ideas, again, a multitude of benefits. And diverse teams actually outperform non-diverse teams by a huge 35%. There's a huge engineering company that I work with here in the Middle East who did an experiment, and they built a diverse team and they compared it to the non-diverse team, and actually the results of innovation and productivity were lightning fast. So, you know, there's lots of examples of when we create that inclusivity, we really do have a multitude of benefits for the business. So diversity is profitable. It is good for business. Let's not forget the I from DEI. Let's not forget SDG 5 from the SDG goals. Let's stop having panels, all male panels. Let's really know that we can all play our part, no matter how small. And I want you to know that we can all create change, no matter how small. It's about calling it out if we see something which we don't feel is fair or equitable. You know, imagine a world where we lead together, where it's men and women side by side. We have the power to infiltrate change, not just for today, but for a sustainable future. So I want you to know after this talk, and please feel free to ask me any questions, you know, the roles we play and the actions that we take, they matter. The cultures we build, the diverse teams that we create, they matter. And we can all play our part, no matter how small.
Seconds, I think there's some disruptions.
No worries. So lastly, I leave you with this. Let's come together. Let's break down barriers and change the social norm. Let us be role models, paving the way, not just for this generation, but the next generation and the next generation. Let's work together in allyship and put the inclusivity back in DEI. Let's all be the change that we really need to see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Actually, there are 2 points that I would like to further discuss with you. I was inspired by using the term we. So you've never used the word she, or, you know, like as if it's an individual effort that women should do by themselves. You've emphasized also on the role of men and the society as a whole. And then the second point that I would want to know more from you, you've mentioned, you know, some economic returns to having women in business and leadership and so on. But what are some takeaways for not only the government, but also business leaders when it comes to understanding the social welfare of the whole society? Because as you've mentioned, we see the business profits, the increase in profits that we can make, but how can we convince them? Because as you've mentioned, there's the role of raising more awareness, providing more information and guidance to them. What could we tell them when it comes to the social welfare, for them to be able to absorb this concept of social welfare, but not only individual welfare? Because we see the same problem as well when it comes to the environment. You know, each firm would want to maximize its profit irrespective of the environment, irrespective of the other businesses, inclusion, decent work, and so on. So what are some points that you could share with our audience coming from the public, private sector, but also youth?
So I think that we are still living in outdated patriarchal societies. And, you know, I think that takes a long time to change. But what we know is that when we have gender equity, when women get access to resources, when they get access to funding, when they get access to the same opportunity, you know, it infiltrates our society and economy. So, you know, women often are, you know, mothers, that passes down to their generations. So again, yes, it's about awareness, but it's also about taking action. Because my biggest frustration with the work that I do is seeing on Women's Day companies who do one event, they have pink balloons and a cake. I actually turned down a lot of work this year for International Women's Day because I want to work with businesses who walk the talk. So I think that walking the talk is fundamental. It's not about doing a PR campaign. It's not about sponsoring an event and having a panel. Let's go and be the change. Let's stop talking about the issue and be the change. And that's a lot of the work that we do with Wild. We're on the ground doing the work. For company leaders, I think that it's about attracting and retaining female talent. So we need to look at employer branding. Are we female friendly? You know, do we have a community within an organization which fosters relationships, which gives women perhaps access to coaches, leadership training, and also developing that younger talent. So we need to see a big shift, Anthony, from what I call say to do. Let's stop talking about gender equity and let's begin really walking the talk.
So to act now, you know, the interlinkages between the SDG, and we had this discussion yesterday with Sarah Shatila as well. We have a question from the audience also emphasizing the role of education. And not only education in a broad sense, but also early education, pre-university education. So what's the role of education and what interventions could be done at the level of, you know, schools to raise, you know, new generations, but also more inclusive generations?
So, yeah, the education process is important. So I think that schools and universities need to be talking about DEI, building diverse teams at that level. I think that Gen Zs are an incredibly exciting, you know, sector. I think that, you know, they're rebellious, ethical. As I said, they are really into social change. 85% of millennials and Gen Zs want to know a company's diversity and equality policy before they apply for a job. So my other point that I might add is we can only blame the system so much. And what I mean by that is we need to take accountability for ourselves and our own ownership and actions. I see, because I coach women as well, but I see a lot of women in particular in this region striving for more and more academia. And I'm not devaluing academia. I think it's amazing to do MBAs or PhDs, but what are we doing about our personal growth and development? Because it's actually the inner part, the looking at our mindset, the looking at our belief systems, the wreckage of our past. That's what success really is. So it's no good having all of these academic achievements if we don't have perhaps a coach or mentor, and we don't have someone to support us with our mindset and personal growth and development. So I do believe that education plays a huge role, but I also believe that we as individuals, no matter what level we are, need to invest in our own growth and development. I'm working with a Saudi national female who is one of the 1,000 leaders for the MISC Foundation. She's incredibly inspiring. I love her to pieces. She wants to coach and support young Gen Z Saudi females. So when they graduate from university, they are equipped with the right tools to go into the working world.
And maybe we would take also this opportunity to congratulate Saudi Arabia for having their first Arab female to go to space.
Yeah.
So maybe I think, are we on the right track in the Arab region?
Sorry?
Are we on the right track in the Arab region when it comes to achieving not perfect gender equality? Let's not be idealistic, but at this point in time, are we on the right track?
As I said, the Middle East is 115 years to achieve equity. So we have a 50% head start. Saudi is an extremely fascinating region. I work with some of the Giga projects, some of the engineering companies, some of the male dominated sectors, and they are seeing so many young females come up through the ranks, they don't actually know what to do with them. You know, because they are moving into what is traditionally male disciplines, engineering, architecture, construction. So I believe that with the Vision 2030 and the mandate for gender equity, governments in Saudi and also in this region are making tremendous efforts to put splits and balances into play, mandates into play. It's just we're not doing enough in the corporate world, I would say, to really infiltrate change. And change comes from the top down. So change is happening, not fast enough.
Yeah, right. This was a question actually. Should the intervention be at bottom up or a top down or bottom up perspective? So you've answered this now. So we have another question. They're asking, how can they join the Wild network?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love you to be part of Wild. So Wild is for existing and future leaders. We are about inclusivity, so all are welcome. We are launching in Abu Dhabi this week. So if you're in Abu Dhabi, then you can join that event. We are also opening the doors on Friday to Wild Women Collective, which is our official and unique membership, which focuses on, I would say, an all-round approach. So just to give you context, when I was in the corporate world all those years ago, we never heard about wellness. We never heard about work-life balance. We worked 12-hour days, and it was very much an environment of put up and shut up, you know? And we definitely didn't hear about equality and taboo topics, which are now coming to the forefront, like periods and menopause. So it's great to see all of that shift. I created Wild Women Collective as an affordable opportunity for women to be part of something greater. We incorporate wellness as the bedrock to success, self-leadership, power skills, and leadership. I had burnout last year, very dark space. It's not about working our fingers to the bone. It's about creating balanced success. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIner. My name is Emma Burdett, and please feel free to connect with me anytime. I spend a lot of time working with young females pro bono also. So yeah, you're more than welcome to join Wild. Would absolutely love you on board.
Perfect. Then another question from the audience. Is achieving gender equality being taken seriously worldwide, or is it just a box that is being checked?
Yeah, I think we've answered that question. I think it is a tick in the box at the moment. I think that we need
not only at the corporate level,
yeah,
and maybe from also the international community, but also governments. Are we having, future strategies, like futuristic strategies, or all the interventions are short-term interventions? So, like, do you see the interventions that are being done sustainable?
I think that we aren't doing enough. I think it's, like I say, tremendous efforts from governments, but yeah, I don't think we're doing enough where it's concerned. And I think the issue is people don't know what to do. People don't know how to go about it. I have companies contact me and they frantically say, we need to achieve equity. And it's not about helicoptering women in. It's about creating, that diverse cross-functional team. So it's not about just adding women to the business, lots involved. My biggest suggestion to any organization who wants to take gender equity seriously is to build a women's network. I've built one from 4 to several thousand. I've seen firsthand the power of such networks. We're giving women access to resources, to knowledge, to find naturally role models to be inspired by. And when companies do build these networks, not at an amateur level, at a very proficient level, I believe that they are the answer, one of the key solutions to gender equity.
What's the message? We have some youth with us today. So what are some messages for youth? How can they drive the change themselves when it comes to gender equality?
I think that the youth can come together and really be a collective voice. I think that that's, like I say, the Gen Z population massively excite me, particularly because I'm rebellious myself. So I think that you can create initiatives, you know, and call out the change. And we are seeing that. I'm very hopeful for Gen Zs actually creating, you know, sustainable, diverse, ethical and equitable environments. So calling out change, having groups, community groups, I think is vital, and creating psychological safety. And this again goes back to the workplace, environments where everybody can be themselves and bring their whole selves to those environments.
Perfect. We have another question. They have some ideas that would want to share with Wild and the network. So again, they could maybe check the website, the social media accounts. You're responsive everywhere, right?
Yeah, so my name, Emma Burdett. Our Instagram is Wild Women Lead. Our website is Wild Women Lead. And yes, we work with women, but we also do, interestingly, we do joint events. So last week we were in Jeddah. We did a private event and it was for men and women talking about diversity and inclusion. So we don't just work with women. That is, you know, our area of expertise, but we also work with men and women. So as I say, you can contact me any time. I'm often on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me.
So you can find her everywhere.
A bit more now. I am everywhere. Yeah.
And I think this, you know, it's the fastest growing network. So I think
it's been a lot of hard work. I might add that, you know, look, I'm a fairly new entrepreneur. I built Wild as a side hustle. I launched Wild with $300. I am self-funded. I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved. It is growing and taking off now. It has taken 5 years, but we did have COVID in between.
Yeah.
But I want you to know, if there are a lot of younger people listening, that anything is possible. Stay true to your vision. Keep the faith. Try and step out of your comfort zone and out of your fear. And as I said, I built Wild after having a rock bottom and a breakdown on $300, and now it is really taking off in a big way. So anything is possible.
So let's move a little bit to the labor market, entrepreneurship and the labor market.
Okay.
So we've seen many of the industries today and jobs are either dominated by males or females. But we've also seen that the number of graduates from, you know, science, technology, mathematics, and engineering is increasing among women. So what do you think are good, you know, now timely interventions to support the inclusivity of female in these jobs? Because they are being graduated from STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but they're not finding a job. We still see some alarming high rates of female unemployment and labor force participation rate. So would entrepreneurship be a solution? Is the entrepreneurship enabling environment supportive for women in the region? What could be done?
Let's not underestimate how difficult entrepreneurship is. I think that it can look extremely glamorous. And I'm here to tell you that I am extremely resilient, and entrepreneurship is really difficult. And not to put anyone off, it is also extremely rewarding being your own boss. But I will say the highs are highs and the lows are definitely low. It's extremely lonely, especially when you're doing trailblazing work like me. You know, it's lonely. I've made a lot of sacrifices for Wild. Entrepreneurship, I think, is definitely an option. I think after COVID, we saw the Great Resignation. So a lot of people had time to reflect and decide that they were done with the corporate world. I understand that wholeheartedly as well. And I think entrepreneurship is amazing, but what we see, and I don't know the stats as much, Anthony, because I focus very much on the private corporate sector with my work, but there isn't enough funding for female entrepreneurs, and that's globally. I know some of my female entrepreneurs that are part of Wild, or females in the VC space, there is a real issue with gender inequity at funding level. So I think that when we talk of gender equity, it's about providing women and men with the same access and resources. And I think there's also stats to show that women entrepreneurs absolutely smash it and get really, really high returns for investors. So why are we not investing in female-led businesses? They have a proven track record. So entrepreneurship is amazing, not for the faint-hearted, not to discourage you. You need a good support network. So yeah, I think we need to provide access to resources across everything on a corporate level and also for funding.
Perfect. We have a nice comment from Hamad who said, what a man can do, a woman can do better, which is, I
Thank
think
you so much.
we all do support that. Let me conclude with a final question. Okay, there's a lot of questions.
Go for it. We can stay a little longer. I don't mind at all.
Certainly, certainly. So let's take a question on, networks. So you've said that, partnerships, networks, and so on.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in, like, you have a very well-established network.
Yeah.
But how could, women in some rural areas living in marginalized groups,
Yes.
crisis countries, war, and so on, create a network? Maybe not at scale, but a network that could drive change.
Yeah. So look, we don't need to have big.
Yeah, the mic, just keep it
Farther away. Okay, so this is really difficult for me because normally I'm used to walking around, number one, so being sat down is difficult, and this seems strange to hold the mic from here, but anyway. So we don't need big fancy systems, processes for women's networks. I built Wild with 4 women and a sheet of paper. Literally had no idea what I was doing, and it sort of morphed and sort of grew organically. My suggestion would be to gather with like-minded people that share a common interest, have a theme for your network, and also an objective. I'm going to talk about women's networks in particular because that is something I'm very passionate and an advocate for. But, it's not a bitching session where we all sit around talking about other people, okay? It's about support, and it's about giving ourselves the knowledge and the expertise to be able to grow, thrive, and flourish. So you can work with a mentor. I personally mentor women on social impact projects. That out of everything I do with Wild is what makes my heart sing. I have to just tell you an example of this. Joanna, a client of mine, a Filipina, faced much discrimination in this region for being the maid or the nanny. And Joanna and her husband own several businesses. Joanna came to work with me. I asked her what her values were, what she cared about. And she said that she cared about the Filipina community and her sisterhood. So we worked together, and exactly 1 year ago, Joanna launched the Thriving Filipina Circle of 15 women. I was at her launch. If you saw her before, she was incredibly shy and nervous. She worked with me as a mentor. On Saturday, she had 1 year of Thriving Filipina Circle. I had the privilege of being a speaker, and there were 300 women, and this is now a business. So she's my walking, talking testimonial. I've done this process with several other women. One lady is a set up a network for working Arab mothers called the Generation Makers Academy. My advice is start small, but I would say to everybody, invest in you, get a coach or mentor, no matter what level you're at. I've worked with 4 coaches, and I will continue to invest in my growth and development. I couldn't have created Wild and had the success that I've had I have not had a coach or mentor. How else are we going to figure it out, right? So start small. It can be 4 women in a sheet of paper. Have a purpose, align it with your values. Just write on the top of your piece of paper, what are my top 5 values, and everything you do should align with your values.
I have a nice question from the audience. You've mentioned that you faced bullying, discrimination, bias, and being fired. Today, I think many women are also facing the same problems. So what changed from 2006 to today? What's the difference? Being fired in 2006 and being fired in 2023?
I think that toxic workplace cultures are a key issue. There is a statistic that was published recently to say that over half of the companies in the Middle East have a toxic workplace culture. It makes me really sad as well, because I did a post on LinkedIn. It was one of my highest performing posts about my own experience, and it had like 70,000 views.
Wow.
And my inbox literally went bang, 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 bang of not just women, but men who are being bullied, harassed, belittled. My biggest suggestion, get out. You know, we deserve to be seen, heard, and understood. We deserve to be respected and valued at work. There's nothing worse, and I get emotional talking about it, but waking up with that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, terrified to go to work, or checking your phone in the middle of the night, wondering what awful emails we're going to get, that blame culture. So if we're in toxic environments, don't be scared to leave, and don't be scared to say something. You know, I actually in one business did go the full mile. I stuck up for myself. It was a scary process, but I'm glad that I did that and stuck up for myself. So, but if it is really toxic, get out. You know, we deserve to be valued and respected.
Thank you so much, Emma. And thank you. And we're actually grateful for you being a voice, not only for women, but for gender equality, because as you've mentioned, gender equality does not only affect women, it affects men equally. So for that, we are grateful. And maybe a lesson learned today, whenever you're bullied, you've been facing bias, you're being underestimated, not only need to leave, but you also to be the voice. So maybe it's always good to speak out, to be the voice, and let's work together maybe for a more sustainable, inclusive future. Thank you so much, Emma. And I hope we can keep this discussion going either on Emma's social media, but also on our knowledge for all social media channels. Thank you so much, our dear audience, and apologies for the technological glitches today, technology glitches today, and we hope to solve them soon. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to have voice, and I would love to connect with you all. Have a great day. Stay wild.
Certainly. Stay wild, our dear audience, and we'll catch up tomorrow with the third session with Yazan. See you. Bye.